Hey everyone and welcome back to Just Finished Coding. I'm Sriram and this video is part 3 of the Hangman game dev series where we recreate the famous word game on Scratch. In case you haven't watched parts 1 and 2, then click on the card up here. And just a reminder, if you are stuck during any part or video, then you can head over to the downloadable files link in the description box below, download just the file that you need and then continue. In this video, we will fully complete the part of the game where a word is accepted for the player to guess. This includes the whole graphical interface as well as the centering that we will enable. Very exciting stuff, so let's get right into the code. To start, go to the background tab and create a new variable called user input. At the beginning, set it to be blank. This variable will correspond to the word that will be entered in. Great. Now go to the answer letter sprite. Like the keyboard letters, this contains all the letters as its costumes. This sprite will be responsible for displaying the user input during the accepting stage, and it will display the correct letters during the guessing stage. Pretty straightforward. On receiving init circles, go to x20 and y-3. Okay, create a variable called left answer x for all sprites. This variable will store the x position of the first letter of the user input. So for example, if the word was cat, the variable will store the position of the letter C. Set this variable to be 20. For the first letter, it makes it reasonably centered. Now, create a new variable called xWidth for all sprites. This variable will be storing the gap between two successively displayed letters. So set xWidth to be 25. After this, create a third variable called number of clones, also for all sprites. This variable will store the maximum number of letters that the user input can have. Set it to 15, and this means that the max word length is basically 15. Perfect. Now hide the sprite and then set the size to be tile width minus 1 divided by 28 multiplied by 100%. I've explained this block in detail in the previous parts. Basically, this makes the size equal to the tile width, though slightly smaller than it. Great. Create a custom block called create clones, making sure to run without screen refresh. Move the block below and then place it at the end of the init circles message. Create a variable called clone ID for the sprite only. Then create a variable called clone for the sprite only. Clone ID will help us index the clones, while the clone variable will help us distinguish between the clones and the sprite by itself. Just like we did for the circles, set clone ID to be 1 and then set clone to be yes. Following this, repeat number of clones and each time create a clone and then increment the clone ID. Finally, set clone to be no. Great, this will accomplish what we needed, though at this point, while the clones will be created, they will all be hidden and hence won't be displaying anything. Before we proceed in the sprite, let's go back to the circle sprite to ensure that the user input takes on the correct value. When the circle is clicked, first check if the game mode is accept. There will be a whole different approach if the game mode is guess, and we will probably do that in the next video. Continue by checking if the length of user input is less than the number of clones. This is because the number of clones variable is an effective ceiling of the max number of letters in the word. Alright, get values at the respective x and y position, then get the index at tile x and tile y, and finally get value at index. If you recall from the last video, this will ensure that the letter variable has the particular letter stored in it that the user just clicked. The next thing we must do is concatenate that particular letter to the user input variable. Meaning, we wish to add it to the end of the word without affecting all the other letters. This is pretty simple. Just set user input to be the joint value of user input itself and the letter. There's one more issue that must be addressed, and that is the centering of the letters. If we keep displaying the clones to the right, that's going to look pretty bad when it comes to the UI. So as the word gets bigger, we must keep moving to the left, and as the word gets smaller, we must keep moving to the right. Now, this does not have to be a continuous movement. Rather, we just have to move the letters every second time. So if the length of user input mod 2 is equal to 1, then broadcast a new message called shift left and wait. The purpose of this block will be to let the answer letters know that they all must move to the left side. This isn't all there is. Every second time when the backspace is pressed, the letters should shift to the right. Also, the last letter in the word should be removed. So head over to the sprite and make some space. When the sprite is clicked, if the length of user input is not 0, then we must delete the last letter. For this, create a custom block called del last letter, making sure to run without screen refresh. Place this block in the if condition. Now we have to actually define it. First, create a variable called temp for the sprite only. Then, set temp to be the user input. After this, set the user input to be blank. After this, we will add each letter to the user input from temp except for the last one. We need a loop for this, so create a new counter variable called c for this sprite only. Set c to 1 and then repeat the length of temp minus 1. Each time, set the user input to be itself joined with the letter c of temp. Lastly, increment c. While this does have a few lines of code, it's fairly easy to understand, and at the end of this function, the user input will basically have its last letter removed. Perfect, back to the sprite click part. Make some space because now we have to program the case where the shift happens to the right. So if the length of user input mod 2 is equal to 0, then broadcast a new message called shift right and wait. We don't do this for length mod 2 is equal to 1 because if we did that, then both the shift left and shift right commands will occur simultaneously and end up cancelling each other out. Anyway, the messages are set up now, but we must actually make the answer letters follow them. Let's quickly make the blocks to shift left and right. Create one called shift left, making sure to run without screen refresh. If clone is yes and the clone ID is equal to 1, then we will change the x position by -1 times x width and then set the answer left value to be the new x position. We just need to do this for the clone on the left because the x position of all the remaining clones will be a function of the answer left variable. Anyway, it's time to move on. Create a custom block called shift right, making sure to run without screen refresh. Defining this is a piece of cake since we've already defined shift left. We do the exact same thing, just making sure to change x by x width instead. Okay, one more custom block. We can call this getIndex for letter with an input of letter, making sure to run without screen refresh. This block will return the index given a letter. So if the input is b, then the value that we must get back is 2. To store the value, create a variable called index for this sprite only. Set index to be item number of letter in letters. Good. Now when the shift left message is received, we use the shift left custom block, and when the shift right message is received, we use the shift right custom block. The last thing to do is display the letters. Go to some space and when the start message is received, repeat until the game mode is no longer accept. If clone is yes, check if clone ID is greater than the length of user input. Since each clone represents a letter, these clones are at the moment unnecessary, so we hide. If the condition is false, then set x to be left answer x plus clone ID -1 multiplied by x width. This way, the first clone is at an x position of left answer x, while each clone after that is to its right by a value of x width. show the clone, then get index for letter clone ID of user input. The index will be set to the correct value, so finally we can just set the costume to be index. And that is it. Test the program and wonderful. The keyboard works along with the automatic indenting. The accepting stage is pretty much complete at this point, and from the next video we can start to work on the guessing part. If you've enjoyed this video, then please make sure you leave a like, and also don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.